Awesome. Okay, welcome everyone. This is Do NASA Science Live. We are here talking about citizen science and NASA science specifically, and we're really excited to talk to you. So, if you are here for the first time hearing about citizen science, we are happy for your questions because we'll explain as much as we can, and then we can keep answering details in the chat and Q&A. If you have questions about the project Redshift Wrangler, don't worry, we'll have plenty of time to talk to the actual project leader too. All right, so before we get started, some quick things to go over. This is a program that is in connection with SciStarter, who I work for, and NASA Citizen Science. This is our production team. It involves Darlene Cavalier, the founder of SciStarter, Roland Moundalock, who is in the chat helping out with any specific technical needs you might have, myself, Emma, Giles, and then Mark Kuchner is the Citizen Science Officer, the Citizen Science Officer for NASA. And then Sarah is also on the line. I'll actually pass it off to her in a moment here to talk to you about the Solar System Ambassador Program. But before I do that, as you might have seen in the slide deck before we got started, we are here because SciStarter produces these big events to get people involved in citizen science, participatory science, community science, you name it. The big idea is that we are an aggregator. We are a collector of projects. We try to have as many as humanly possible to display to you and get you involved in them. So any type of experience is awesome. A total beginner, total veteran, all that's welcome. You can have a free account and save your projects to your own dashboard and have access to all these materials too, and trainings as well. Which I will talk about again briefly. If you'd like to create an account, that's also really helpful for tonight so that you can make sure you can make the most of your participation in real time. Alrighty. Okay, so some background. If citizen science is new to you, here is our formal definition at SciStarter. It's a global movement that enables people from all walks of life to contribute to real scientific research in collaboration with scientists, anytime from anywhere. So that is all of you doing science. To just be a part of the actual scientific endeavor. So whether you're interested in space science like we're talking about today, or if you like wildlife, everything is available to you. All right, so a big part of these events is also our friends, the SciStarter ambassadors and the Solar System ambassadors from NASA. The SciStarter ambassadors are near and dear to my heart, and they are lovely humans who have taken on the extra role of taking trainings in what citizen science is and how to facilitate it in their communities so they can be the leaders close to you to lead you into doing practice of citizen science. Now, in order to make that happen, many of them are here tonight to figure out how they can bring Do NASA Science Live to their communities through watch parties, satellite events, and to support you in the chat as well. And a big part of that grouping is the Solar System Ambassador. So I'm actually going to go ahead and pass it on to Sarah to talk about the Solar System Ambassadors, what they do, how to join, and when to do that.
Excellent. So the Solar System Ambassadors are near and dear to my heart. So we are a 25-year-old program funded by NASA, and we have United States citizens in every single state in the United States and some overseas who share NASA science in their communities. So this is a group that's over 1,000 strong. We have about 1,100 people, and they're passionate about NASA, and they do programs in libraries, parks, star parties, elementary schools, senior centers, and anywhere that will have them. They participate in STEM events, and they share on social media. They do all sorts of things to get Americans and people overseas knowing what NASA is doing and what missions are, what NASA science is happening and all the new discoveries. And we are a new partner with SciStarter. So it's very exciting to bring our two programs together and to bring more volunteers into the SciStarter fold and to get the NASA ambassadors assisting with NASA science. So we're really happy to be part of this and to be participating in the 3 additional events that are happening this year. And I see a bunch of you in the chat, so I'm thrilled to see some of my people. So that's what I got. Oh, excuse me. And we do have an application process to be a NASA Solar System Ambassador. And that application season opens somewhere around August, September in 2026.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm very excited to see how many folks we get from these NASA loving folks to join in the fall. And if you want to join something even sooner too, as mentioned in the fall, it's for solar system ambassadors. The SciStarter ambassadors will be opening up applications in the early 2026 couple of months, hopefully early in January. I will note too, before you even become an ambassador, you can actually take a free training and learn everything that ambassadors have to learn in order to apply. So if you head over to SciStarter.org, and there's actually a button for ambassadors right now, you could just click on that and learn a little bit more. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us as well. I'm seeing a lot of questions also coming in through the chat, folks. Thank you so much for doing that. If you want it to be answered out loud, just so we don't miss it, make sure you add it to the Q&A as well. All right. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our actual guest today. Sadie Coffin is here, which is amazing because we've already done an event together, and it's just such a joy to have you back. So thank you so much for being here with us. Sadie is a fifth-year PhD candidate in astrophysical sciences and technology at the Rochester Institute of Technology, where she works with Dr. Jehan Kartal-Tepe to study how galaxies form and evolve over cosmic time using spectroscopy and participatory science, or citizen science. She's the project leader for the NASA-funded project, Redshift Wrangler, and we're going to actually try that out today as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share so we can look at each other. Hello. And get to know a little bit more about what brought you to Redshift Wrangler. So thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us in simplest terms, what is Redshift Wrangler?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so Redshift Wrangler, in simple terms, so we are a NASA-funded citizen science project. So we are a collaborative science project hosted on Zooniverse, as we're going to see later. And I guess in really simple terms, we're looking at galaxies, but we're not looking at the images of the galaxies as some other projects are doing. We're looking at the light from the galaxies. So we're spreading out the light in a spectrum, kind of like a rainbow, but we're not always looking at the visible light. So it won't always look like a rainbow of colors. It might be colors outside of what our human eye can see. It might be into the infrared or the UV light. And all of this is kind of in order to learn more about the galaxies that we're studying, in order to learn about things like their redshift, things like how far away they are, what they're made of, what's going on inside of them in their interactions with other galaxies. And we're kind of studying the field called galaxy evolution, of how galaxies form and evolve in the distant universe. So this is all trying to figure out what's going on in the very, very early days of the universe. How does the light from these very far away objects tell us about what was happening long ago and far away? And so we like to kind of think about light and distance and kind of the machine of Redshift Wrangler as kind of the closest we can come to using a time machine. And the tagline of Redshift Wrangler that we've used is was the exact wording, using the light from distant galaxies to look back in time to the distant universe. So we kind of thought about how to set up our project almost like we're getting really close to a time machine. You know, we like to think of astronomy sometimes, one of the only tools we have is light, and using light to look back in time and out in space is the closest we can get sometimes to time travel, because we're looking at a different point in time when we're studying the light when it gets to us.
I love that. It just makes me think of trying to rewrite a time machine related movie in building the machine out of light somehow. Maybe that'll be how we do it in the future. Or at least that's how we're doing it now, right? That's amazing. And there's so much of like this type of science that I was never like super involved in as like a kid. Like I was not a super space science oriented child. So I'm always curious, like, why did you go into this? Like, how did you end up learning this much? And did you know a lot about like redshift before you started studying astrophysics, or how did this evolve for you?
That's a good question. I feel like there's a couple of different answers, and I didn't know a lot about redshift going into this. I don't think I had a lot of very technical background in astronomy. I think I was always really interested in how the universe worked, and I really wanted to understand more of how looking out into space could help us learn more about our own place in the universe. And you know, that's kind of maybe a little bit of a universal idea, that we can look out in space and learn more about Earth, learn more about our place in the universe, how life came to our planet, how we came to be, how water came here, all of that. the same way we look out at distant galaxies to learn more about our own galaxy, because we can't yet send a camera outside of the Milky Way maybe and take a photo of our own galaxy or really intricately study our galaxy from the outside the way we can look at other galaxies from the outside. So we have to look at other galaxies in order to learn more about our own. And we also can't watch galaxies change in time the way that we can watch, there's a lot of things we can study in biological fields that I'm always fascinated by now being an astronomer, that we can watch them change throughout their entire life cycles. And we can't do that with a galaxy. We can't watch it change throughout its entire life cycle. We have to just find a galaxy in each stage of its life cycle and use that to study it. And so I think I was always fascinated by like the puzzle that is astronomy, and how do we piece things together from so little information, and just a bit of light can tell us so much, but we have to really like pull it apart and piece it all together. So I liked that there was so much of like a puzzle and a challenge to it, and that in physics or research or astronomy, it feels like there's more questions than answers, which can be frustrating, I think, often, but also feels like very exciting, and like there's a lot of opportunity there, and like it can be a really exciting field to enter when you can just ask a lot of questions, and there's so many whys and hows and whens, and you obviously want to find those answers, but it's almost more worthwhile to be finding more questions than necessarily just to stamp an answer onto every research question that you have. So I think that's really cool about space and astronomy. Something about that always appealed to me.
The questions?
Yeah, exactly. And no one tells you you're wrong for asking more questions, because that's the whole point of doing space research, and being able to figure out what research questions are valuable, and I don't think I really knew. I always was like, I didn't know from a young age I'm a physics person through and through. I think I was fascinated by the universe in every subject I was interested in. But there's something that makes you feel both like really special looking up at space, but also like one of a million people and so not special at the same time. And there were a lot of things that probably brought me to space in some point in time, but I like really just spent a long time being like, yeah, I need to know more about this. I guess I need to keep studying this. I need to know more about it. And
yeah, it's that itch, the longing to find answers, or just more questions in your case, I suppose. Is there I'm going to give you one more why question. Is there a why people should participate in Redshift Wrangler specifically, like your call to action for folks?
I think for Redshift Wrangler, I feel like one of my biggest calls to action is probably one of the biggest like motivators for us starting Redshift Wrangler was that we have this huge abundance of data that's only continuing to grow. And by data, I mean like light spectra that we've gathered of galaxies. There's no shortage of galaxies in the universe, obviously, but also we have no shortage of raw data collected from telescopes, and no shortage of plans to take more data with telescopes. We have incredible telescopes and incredible observatories coming online in the future, and we're just planning to take more and more data of them. And we have plenty of it that Redshift Wrangler can kind of be this really great medium method of turning these like faint, noisy spectra of all these distant early universe galaxies into something that we can measure scientifically and turn into cool discoveries. This isn't something that is at all possible for us to do with like one person or a small little group of people, and that I think isn't really realistic for like computers or automated methods to do well yet. That this isn't really the kind of data that is that computers are good at doing or looking at. It's really challenging for anything except like the human pattern recognition to look at that faint and really messy spectral data. We're getting better at it, and Redshift Wrangler will create training methods to help get better at it. But we just have so much data that is like piling up that is so much fun to like dig through. That was part of the reason why we launched it, and it feels like a really uniquely human task to like look through these like faint little spectra of these very distant objects that are, you know, emitting their light from way before the Earth was even created, probably.
That's crazy to think through. The fact that light is telling us these things from billions upon billions of years in the past.
I know, it's honestly hard to wrap my mind around, and it might be a strange thing of mine, but I think it's fun to do things that are hard to wrap my mind around.
Okay, but that's why you're a scientist. That makes a lot of sense, right? All right, so before we move forward, I am seeing, again, lots of questions in the chat. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A so we don't miss it. Our team will do our best to like copy and paste them to make sure we get them listed or make sure we answer them, but there's so much coming in through the chat. I don't want to make that mistake. So before we get started, I do want to note there are a couple of awesome folks out there hosting watch parties of this. So if you want to do that in the future, this is one of those activities that you can. So I just want to shout out our friends in New Hampshire and Exeter. Thanks for being here. And also in Kansas City, Missouri. Thank you for being here. If we see you later with questions, we'll have you join in as a panelist. You can say hello visually too. All right, so to keep us moving, I'm seeing some questions about like, okay, well, yeah, like let's get started. What is this? So I'm gonna go ahead and push us that direction. So before we get started, we do need to know how the system works and what we're actually going to be doing. So this is a SciStarter.org webpage for Redshift Wrangler. So this is a project page. It gives you a lot of information. I'm signed into account. I can go visit the project. And this is a SciStarter affiliate project. The reason I mention this is because we are gearing up to be calculating a lot of acts of science, meaning as much practice as you can possibly do of citizen science. Earning up to millions of acts of science is what we want to accomplish. As we head into 2026, we're actually going to be starting the counter on April 1st to get up to 2.5 million in order for Citizen Science Month. So we're going to have millions. We want you to practice now. So I'm going to set you up for preparing for April as well. So my steps will include that. If you do not already have a SciStarter account, I highly recommend you do that first. So step number 1, you are going to create your SciStarter account. I'm going to go ahead and drop these links with a number in the chat for you too, so you know which ones come next. So step number 1, create your SciStarter account. Once you've done that, and for many of you, you might have already done that. I don't want to rush you, but I do want to make sure we get through all the steps so we can start working. When I log out, you'll be able to see a login button, login, or sign up. Okay, login or sign up. So you can make up whatever you'd like. I'm going to do a fake one for you so you know what it looks like. All you got to do is an email and a password as well, nothing else. You can use a username too as well. This is my Do NASA Science Live. It is 12/11. It's a great email. That'll be my username so I don't forget. Okay, and then you can make up whatever password you need. And then once you've done that, you are good to go on SciStarter for some time, and then we'll get you set up with the actual project too. We do have a newsletter, so if you'd like to do that, you are welcome to. And I can sign up. Oh, and I'm on Inc. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Let me get rid of that. Okay, cool. So now that I'm signed in, I'll go to step number 2, which in this case is to create the Zooniverse account. So SciStarter is a dashboard or a database of all the citizen science projects we can find. And so Zooniverse is one of our partner organizations. Like I mentioned in one of the answers to Q&As, we have a lot of partner organizations like CitSci.org we partner with on a regular basis as well. Zooniverse is one of those. So the next step we're going to do is go to Zooniverse, which means I'm going to visit. Click visit, continue to Redshift Wrangler. And then this is the project page. I'm already signed in. And so to make things easy, I'll actually just go ahead and log out so you can see what it looks like. So not much change. The only difference is in the top right-hand corner, it'll say sign in or register. So in this case, I'll hit register and I'll make an account. For this one, the only requirements are the username, the email address, and that's a password. And that's it. You just have to confirm those things and then you're good to go. I'll go ahead and sign into my regular account, but I'll pause here for a moment and double check that we haven't missed a step here. Already have an account. Awesome. Great job to those of you. I have 2 years of Women Science. Yes, Angie. Have an account, completed the training and champion certificate. Awesome. We await your application in January, Michael. Okay. Looks like we're doing well. Okay, so once you have both accounts, That is when our partners have done this lovely thing to be able to set up a digital handshake. And this is how we're going to make sure the acts of science, all your classifications from today are going to count. So I'm now going to go back to my SciStarter account. I'm going to drop this in the chat for you. If you already have a Zooniverse account too, by the way, that's perfect. What you need to know is your username. So as long as you remember your Zooniverse username, that's all you need. You'll go back to our SciStarter page. I'm going to drop this way. And then I'm going to hit cancel because I already have it open. I'm going to go to my account, my info and settings. I dropped a direct link in the chat, dashboard/settings, so it's easier. And then on here, I'm going to scroll all the way down to something called affiliation integration. This is how we make sure we count all of your awesome acts. No data is shared other than like a tally mark saying you did a classification. So we know nothing about the project. We know nothing about your data. It's just a tally number with like frequency of classifications. So it's a very limited data piece, but it does tell us just the impact that we make, which is really, really awesome to be able to show. So for my Zooniverse username, mine was ECGiles1. Let me double check because I forget. Oh, not a 1. I'm a 1 on other things, but not here. I'm just regular. All right. Yeah, okay, I'm seeing some questions in the chat. Just want to check there. Yes, yeah, Zooniverse partnership. Yeah, we're not the same company at all, organization, but we are buddies, basically. Awesome. Great. Okay, so once I've put my username in, I'm just waiting for my changes to save. I do have a billion tabs open and I'm on Zoom, so it might take a moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and shift back to here in the meantime. Once you've done those things, you're ready to participate in Redshift. So if you are like, I don't want to listen to you, I want to just kind of steamroll ahead, cool, go for it. You technically can. We will also very much guide you through it too, because I love it when a project leader tells me how to do these projects. It makes it a lot easier for me to feel confident. So if you need a confidence boost, you're working with us. If you want to just move forward, you can also just move forward. Here are those steps too, if you want to look at them one last time. SciStarter, Zooniverse account, Zooniverse username onto SciStarter account. And then you take the Redshift Wrangler page and you go back to it and you go ahead and get started. If you'd like to be on a leaderboard, by the way, I will give you a link to a leaderboard later, but we'll wait until we're good at the project. Okay. I feel like an old timer with Zooniverse, get cross-eyed trying to identify those smudges. Oh, John, I feel your pain. That is something I feel all the time with Zooniverse. So if Zooniverse is new to you, be aware that it does take some adjustment, but Sadie, what Sadie said is so right. Like computers can't do what the human eye can do. Our pattern recognition is so good, even if we think it's just little smudgies of nothing, right? We're still better than computers. Awesome. Oh, yes. And for anyone who's like, this is way too much information, that's okay. We will send this slide deck to you and the instructions, the recording. You are set to do this later as well. Yeah, absolutely. Andra, that is what we are doing next. All right. So Sadie, putting you back in the hot seat, can you give us a mini tour of what we need to know about this page?
Yes. All right. So this is the landing page. I think the main thing to know here, if you're familiar with Zooniverse, maybe this will be intuitive to you, but this is giving us a quick rundown of the project. I think the important tabs are if you want a kind of in-depth, or let's say a quick overview of what our science is and what we're doing here on the Project Redshift Wrangler. Kind of what I've just talked about is in the tab labeled About at the top. If we want to jump into doing classifications, where there's going to be kind of a tutorial of how to actually do what you're being asked to do, we can either click, there's a button kind of right below, I think, the frame here that describes the task, or we can click the button that's called Classify. Both of those are to the same place right now. Occasionally we have more than one workflow open. Right now there's just one, so let's go to the same exact place. And that will launch us to doing the task. So we might as well just jump right into that. And this will take us to what the data looks like. From here, we can jump into some tasks. If you're doing this on your own, if you need help, there's a tutorial button you can walk through, or the field guide gives you a lot of annotated examples of things that you might find in the data. That's the kinds of features that might pop up, that especially things that you could confuse for what we're looking for. The main thing we're looking for here is what we're going to call an emission line. Kind of the other thing that we're looking for is absorption line, but we'll talk about an emission line first. So what we're looking for are features in the data that are like the characteristic patterns that are going to help us identify this data. So an emission line is like a bright spike in the spectrum that's kind of telling us what elements are present. They're kind of like the colors. You know, if this was a rainbow in the visible light, these would be like the colors in the spectrum. And this is just outside of the visible light, potentially. So we're looking for, here are my kind of main tips for finding these real features. The first thing I would look for is a spike in the graph. We're looking for we're looking at a spectrum here, and part of the spectrum looks like a plot, a graph at the top. The bottom part of the spectrum looks like a dark bar. That is like a picture of the light. Both of these are still the spectrum. They're just kind of different versions or different representations of the data. So we call these the 1D spectrum and the 2D spectrum. The top is like a plot of the brightness over the energy, the wavelength of the light, and the bottom is like a picture of the dispersed light. So both of these are going to help you make your classification, if that makes sense. But to give you a little bit more background on this, what we're looking at here, if that helps, we're looking at the full spectrum of light in this what you're hovering over right now, the full rectangle that goes across the entire image, the full spectrum. That is our data for this galaxy. Below it, we've split that data into 6 panels to kind of zoom in more on what's going on. So when we actually make our classification, which is going to be like drawing boxes over the features, we're making those classifications in these 6 smaller panels. So that top full rectangle, that's the full spectrum. That's just showing you, here's what the full data looks like. Now let's focus on the lower 6 panels, A, B, C, D, E, and F. So there's kind of a lot going on here, but it's just to help you guide your eye a little bit, help you zoom in. At the top, there's an image of the galaxy, if that helps. I will say, sometimes these look spectacular, sometimes they're far away, and it looks like what my advisor used to call faint fuzzies. It looks like a faint blurry blob, because sometimes galaxies don't always look nice when they're really far away. This one's kind of cool.
This one's kind of cool.
So I will say, mostly our objects are in the center of the image. So likely that is a fun little bonus galaxy we've caught, and that fun thing is this bonus galaxy in the side of our image. Our galaxy that we are taking a spectrum of here is likely that little dot in the very center of the image.
Oh, not this big thing over here?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this graph is describing what we're seeing wavelength light-wise from this speck.
Exactly.
The speck on the little, okay.
Exactly.
Feeling Horton who fears a who. Oh my gosh, here's a who.
Little speck. So we've taken that little speck, we spread the light out into its wavelengths, and then we've shown that down below. And we've shown the image of the dispersed light, and then the graph is basically, we've then spread it up into bright to show its brightness of each of those points of light.
Right, so the tallest of these is the brightest point of the wavelength?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're looking for the really bright peaks, but it gets complicated because any computer could tell us where the brightest peaks are in this plot. But there's a lot, most of our data, well, I should say all that we looked at so far is taken with ground-based instruments. So there's a lot of stuff here that is going to be coming from our atmosphere, and we're calling that skylines, rather than coming from our galaxy of interest. So we need to separate out what is coming from the sky and what is coming from the distant galaxy.
Are we talking light pollution type of interference?
Well, maybe it could be light pollution, but for the most part, that's probably not what we're looking at when these are taken with. So let's see, this image, for example, the spectrum is from the Keck Observatory. So if this spectrum was taken on Mauna Kea, probably there's not that much light pollution. You know, depends what the observing conditions were on that day. But for the most part, it's just the trickiness of looking through a very chunky atmosphere that surrounds our planet, that we're always guaranteed to have some amount of atmosphere in the way. And there are some sky lines, emission lines, absorption lines that always occur in the same places that we can account for. But others that are just general choppiness. We always get a lot of sky to deal with when we're working from the ground. One thing that we can look at is anywhere you see a vertical bright line across the entire 2D. The 2D is that the lower spectrum, the lower picture of the dispersed light. A bright vertical line, that means that light is coming from across the whole sky. That's kind of like a spatial direction. Yeah, so all of those stripes that you're kind of hovering over, those are all skylines. Because a vertical stripe of light, this picture of the dispersed light is kind of like a spatial picture. So one bright point of light would be one singular object of light in the sky, but a stripe of light tells us that source of light is coming from the entire sky at that wavelength. So
okay. So if it's a line, that's skyline, but if it's a point, it's from outside of our atmosphere?
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
Pretty much.
That's good to know.
And there are a lot of lines there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, where do I see a dot? Maybe this is just noisy. Someone wrote in the chat if this is just noisy data from spectrum data. I'm positive I'm not using these terms correctly. Like, this is vague at the top and vague at the bottom, but there is kind of a point-ish to it, but it has vertical. So no?
I probably would say this is just a skyline. So
Okay.
I would say the next thing I would say, my first tip is you want to look for something that is a peak, right? Okay. So my first tip is usually you want it to stick out in the plot, right? You want it to be kind of prominent spike, both in height and width. So you want it to be a little bit taller, like stick out a little bit from the noise.
Yeah, that where your cursor is, that looks like a pretty wide, tall one.
That one sticks out a bit, both in height and in width. It's like what you'll notice from the noise around it, that the noise around it is only like a couple pixels across. And from an emission line, if it's only a couple pixels across, that could be like a fake false pixel, or often that's just noise. This one is a little bit wider, so that's a good sign. The next thing we look for is a bright spot underneath it in the 2D. And we don't see that down there. So that usually tells me that something is off. What that usually tells me, well, if we're seeing a really prominent spike here, I'll look all throughout the 2D, and if I don't see a bright spot, I will not label that as an emission line, because we need to have a matching.
Needs to have both. Wide and like outlier type of a spike, and then also a bright dot. Okay, so backing up a little bit, do we see anything? In the chat, if you see something, say yes. If you don't see anything, say no. This is a fully interactive event.
And we're not counting the spikes that have correlating vertical lines in the visible data.
Correct. Sometimes there could be a vertical line, a skyline directly on top of an emission line. It could get tricky, but I don't think I see any of those here.
This one's kind of thicker, but just a line, right?
Right. I think that one's just a line. My last couple of tips when people are struggling a lot are, I really find it useful to use the invert color tool on Zooniverse and to zoom in like we've done here and to look. Because sometimes inverting the color helps, where when you invert the color, then you're looking for like a really dark spot. So that one that you were looking at in this panel right here, this panel A, I think right above it. That skyline you're looking at on the right, that seems like it could have a bright spot underneath it. It looks a little bit more like maybe that could be something, but it's still, to me, does not stick out enough, and it's on top of a skyline. And the other thing, I feel like I usually look for a smoother top on an emission line. It wouldn't be quite, it could be jagged if it was really faint, but it's usually a little bit smoother and noise is more jagged.
Okay, so looking to the other panels. Okay, I'm seeing some responses in the chat too. Okay, looking in D, says Vedant. Let me go over to D, see if there's anything. I do see vertical lines, but I'm not sure if I see a spot. This is sort of smoother. By smoother, I guess I'm surprised to see anything that's smooth because most of these are pretty jagged. So none of these have seemed.
Probably smooth was the wrong term. And I think only in nicer data would we see it look really smooth.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we could definitely look at an example in the field guide or the tutorial. But I would probably say I don't see anything real here.
Okay, so so currently I'm sitting in the tutorial for anyone who's like, what the is going on with Zooniverse? Okay, I'm going to switch over to task just so I can see the actual question I'm being asked. So do you see any emission or absorption lines in the given spectrum? Have we gone over which one was that, absorption or emission?
That was emission. So
Okay.
emission is the bright peak, the tall peak and a bright spot under it. An
Okay.
absorption line, an absorption line would be the opposite. An absorption line would be a low dip and then a dark spot under it.
Okay, so in this view, it would be a light mark, which
Exactly.
is not visible. Wait, hold on. Now I'm confusing myself with inverted colors.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I don't think I saw either. Like looking at these real deep dips.
Oh, true. Someone said, what about the first spike in panel A? That's a great question. So usually there often will be a little bit of jagged messiness in either or panels A and or F, the first and or last panels. Often I ignore what's happening right next to the edge of the data in the first and last panels because we just tend to get like some choppiness at the very edges of our data. Like that, it tends to be a little bit less trustworthy at the edge of the detector, and like funky things kind of happen right where our instrument cuts off. So the data gets a little bit noisier, and it kind of like it corresponds with right where the sensitivity drops off. And yeah, like here you can see there's like it kind of looks like you can see where the stripe of the skyline goes all the way up and down the sky. Sometimes it can, like there looks like it could be a bright spot there. It can be a little bit more confusing. I tend to not trust anything that's right there where the data cuts off because we can't see the full feature. And we always see a lot of spikiness jumping up right at the edges where the data the sensitivity of the detector cuts off.
Okay, yeah, that seems like I definitely have done some Zooniverse projects where the joke is like, it's a fly on the screen. Like when it's not, it's definitely not because it's from satellite imagery or whatnot where there's no fly up there, but like there's some funky data that can make their way. Sarah, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask Sadie a question because it's a question in Q&A that I thought would be kind of useful. Ashley is wondering if a person's personal computer might impact the resolution or how the images and charts like display on a screen. Thought that might be kind of a useful broad question.
That's a great question. I do think that the size of your screen could impact it. And I never thought about your individual resolution. That could probably impact it. I do think that it's, for me, I can look at the images okay on different screens, but making the classification gets trickier. But probably the resolution could change it, could change what you're seeing in the image. And I would just make use of all the tools of Zooniverse to look really carefully and closely. I find that there's not anything, or maybe it's just rare that I would find a feature in a spectrum that would be so faint and so hard to see that I would need really, really high resolution in order to spot it. I can find it as long as I'm looking carefully and slowly. But that my recommendation for most people is to just take a little bit of time, that as long as you're not skipping through the data in a couple of seconds, that if you take a little bit of time and look through each panel individually, that you shouldn't need super high resolution, but there definitely are tricky spectra where things can get hidden in noise that your right resolution could make that trickier.
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, I'm using a very large screen, but being on Zoom might impact it too, just because of bandwidth. Someone had mentioned that might be a part of it too. So yeah, totally. I could see that. But thanks for the question, Ashley. To make sure we know we're not skipping out, because I'm preparing to say I see nothing, but I don't know if that's actually true. I'm just going to show a couple of examples of the what we are looking for too. So comparison wise, this is
Oh, that's
me
very
zooming in.
helpful.
So
That's like a clear, like a dot and a peak.
Yeah.
oh yeah, and it's not smooth. So I'm glad we cleared that up a bit. Like it's not not the same thing as saying smooth, but now it makes more sense to me. As we scroll down, this is also an emission line.
Yeah, here's one that's pretty, I think this is from our earlier days. This is before we changed the contrast, so it definitely looks very different. But I think there might be a couple more in the, what's it called? Task 1. The first entry in here will show the full task 1 overview. There we go. Let me show the full spectrum of a couple of them and what boxing it looks like as well, with a couple of them annotated. So
ooh, yeah, those are obvious.
that is a really nice one where a lot of them have shown up.
Yeah, I feel like I got gypped. I need to actually, fun fact about Zooniverse, if I hit the refresh button, it will give me a new one, usually. Did it? Yes, it did. Okay, cool. So just a fun fact, if any of you are like, I don't want to guess type of feeling, that's what I end up doing. And a project leader told me that you can do that. So I'm hopefully not trying to screw up your project, Sadie. Okay, zoom in again. Did you want to know anything about these?
These are nice ones. I was gonna say, I think these are really fun to come across, because then I feel like when I come across something like this, I could just start going. But when I come across a spectrum like this, often I feel like there's more emission lines than even the obvious ones too. They're all buried, but as soon as I start finding some, I just like go off, and then I find even more tiny ones hidden in there. But it's really fun to get like a really beautiful spectrum and to be able to find.
Yeah, let's see if we can get one. Let me exit here so we can see if there's anything in this area. Apologies for my giant screen. Okay, so looking at this one, if you see anything you want me to zoom in on, shout it out or type it in the chat anyway. We'll be watching. If anyone has thoughts.
There's a great comment in the chat about this information is helping people read other kinds of graphs.
Totally. That is something I value about Zooniverse a ton. Like if you need attention to detail, you need to learn how to read graphs, it is gold. Yeah. Oh, we have a request for a zoom in to 7667. Let's see. All right. What do we see here, my friend Deborah?
Ooh,
A dot here?
yeah, I see there's almost like a faint brightening. I was like,
I just see a lot of skylines in that one.
Yeah, almost. So what we are looking for, okay, maybe this is getting next level up, but the next thing my eye is looking for is there is a horizontal line in the 2D. You can kind of see it in the 2D spectrum there.
Oh yeah,
that horizontal
This one?
line. Yeah.
Kind of very faint above the number 7667. You can kind of, where your cursor is.
Right there, exactly right where your cursor is. That there's a horizontal line. That is we call that the trace, or it can also be called the continuum of the galaxy. So the galaxy will fall on one horizontal line in the 2D. If we find where the galaxy lives, all of any emission lines, if there are any, and then all of the emission lines will fall along one horizontal trace, one horizontal continuum in the 2D. So it's hard to know where it will be beforehand, because I would guess that was where they would be. But that could be another galaxy, that could be another object. If I find one emission line, if I find one bright line, that immediately tells me all other emission lines for this galaxy are on the same horizontal line. So that's another trick I use when I find emission lines, when I'm looking for emission lines. I know they all have to be on the same horizontal trace if they belong to the same object. So that could be a different object, but I kind of look at that and I think, okay, that looks like that might be my galaxy's trace. So if I wanted to find an emission line, it might be along that kind of horizontal plane. And then I'm looking for like a faint brightening. And in this contrast, image contrast, it would be a faint darkening. But I don't
Sounds so dramatic.
see that here.
I mean, this is the only thing that looks remotely like with the horizontal line. So across all of these panels, it'll be at the same-ish location for the in this area. So if I just scroll and keep my mouse in the same spot, oh, and I can't. If I can do it. I
And
went
we
a
have
little
a
bit,
request
but
to
around
also
that.
look at D and F of these.
Ooh,
little-
okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Right. All right, here's F. We got some super analytical folks on the line. Thank you for those of you who are like, oh, go here. Oh, wait, I think I see a horizontal line again. Is this also a horizontal line, or am I seeing things?
Yeah, I think that might be the same horizontal line. I'm seeing that as well. So I don't think I'm seeing any emission lines on the line.
Okay, so let's go to D, which
Sorry,
should
it was
be-
E and F. I misread it.
Okay, thank you.
E and F. So next door.
I don't know if I see a horizontal line here, but I'm seeing the
I sort of do to the right-hand side. It's very faint. But I mean, with all those skylines, I'm sort of ignoring it. But look at that dip that goes
Oh.
down.
which area? Sorry.
You know, the little
That one
dippity-do.
to the right.
Sorry, technical term, the dippity-do.
The dippity-do.
Is this the dippity do?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, good. I know what that
I
means.
was like, oh, that looks interesting.
Yeah,
Right.
let me change the color again. Oh,
See, it's almost that. It doesn't have some width to it. And if I were to be looking at whether that was a real absorption line, I would want to see a dark spot underneath it.
Yeah.
And I don't see any change in the 2D underneath it.
No.
At least to my eyesight. So I would not, I probably wouldn't mark anything as far as I can tell in this spectrum. It does look
really? Okay.
noisy to me.
Okay, so those horizontal lines by themselves, it's definitely not enough. We still need to have the matching dots and
Right.
Okay, that's good to know.
That could be the continuum of the galaxy, but on top of the continuum, we need to find the features to mark. Well, we want to mark more than the continuum, we want to mark the features.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
go
so we
ahead,
marked, can't find any here. So that would be, if you don't see anything, boom,
Ooh,
hit that button.
We see
Oh, she's
something.
getting excited. She's getting excited. Look at that one. That's a beauty,
this is-
at least in the top one.
look at that. Okay, hold on. That's 8,000. Aha!
There it
you
is
are.
in D.
As I shout into the camera. Sorry, folks.
I know, it does get kind of exciting when you discover one that like meets our criteria.
Ah, come on.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
except I'm now blocking it with that. Come on, go away.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, look at that beautiful thing. Okay, let's figure, can we, or okay, definition wise, is this an emission line?
Yes, and this one is, if we want to get fancy, a special double emission line called a doublet.
What?
If we wanted to add a little tag when we went to add this to our done and talk boards, we could add this as a doublet. That if when you look at
Oh,
the
you're
top of the
you're
emission
getting
line,
clapping.
you can tell
You
there's
found a
kind of
doublet.
2 peaks to the top of the emission line, and you can kind of see the bright spot is almost like 2 distinct bright spots next to each other. Kind of like this is probably an emission line that is like 2 emission lines really close to each other is what we call a doublet. And we call it a doublet when they're so close to each other that we can't resolve them separately. It's a double emission line in one, basically one emission line, because we can't mark them separately.
And John is wondering, could that be the galaxy's central bulge?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
I'm making a little
Central bulge.
emission line all by myself here.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, there could be emission lines that come from the galaxy central bulge, though usually in the central bulge, that could be complicated. Often in the center of the galaxy, there is an extremely energetic and hot, dense, supermassive black hole. And my knowledge of those active galactic nuclei is that they often are producing broad lines that, because of the processes happening in the center of the galaxy, the gas dynamics, they are broadening lines. Yeah, that the AGN often produce pod lines. There are other types of lines they produce, but
Okay, my fancy friend John, AGN, what does that mean?
yeah, there we go. But
Wait, does that mean what you were talking about?
exactly, the active galactic nucleus of the galaxy. There we go.
Gotcha. Thank you.
AGN.
Sweet. Okay, I see so many questions and I'm looking at the time too and worried we won't get to them all. So I'm really excited to see the questions. Why don't we mark this so we know how to mark them, and then we'll cover some of the leftover questions and then we can close it out, and I will give you a group link for all of you who want to practice this on your own, because you'll be able to see yourself in comparison to the others who are here today too. So I think that'll be a good way to continue your work today too. All right, so marking this line, I hit next, and now my job is to mark the spectral feature. So coach me, Sadie. How do I do this?
All right, so we're gonna want to draw a box around just the peak of this emission line in this 1D spectrum. And we want to center it as much as possible, but the most important thing is to capture just the peak of this line. We don't want to capture any of the features around it, and we want to be able to capture the tallest point of the line. So we can go up to the top of right there, top of the box, and we don't want to capture, like, if there was another really noisy thing right next to it, we would want to isolate this feature in the box, and we want to go down to the bottom of the box and just do our best to isolate this one feature.
And how do we know how much?
So I am going all the way.
Yeah, how much to do?
Yes, that's exactly it. It does not really matter exactly how far out you want to do, but yeah, it pretty much matters that we want to get the top and, let's say, the quote unquote bottom. So what that means is we're going down to like where you're seeing that peak branch off and go back into the rest of the plot again.
Okay.
Yeah, right about like that. And we want to be about being perfectly centered does not matter, being perfectly on it. What matters is that it's all inside the box.
Okay, so we don't need to mark the dot, the beautiful dot.
Correct, and we don't need to mark the beautiful dot. Well, what matters here is the location. So what we're going to find from this, really the most important thing is like that the very peak of it is inside the box, because what we're going to be doing with our software afterwards is we're going to say inside the box, where's the peak? That's the location that we'll use, because what we care about is the location of the line. That's what will tell us. That's what we'll use in our calculations later.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit done and talk since we found a special one. And when you hit done and talk on Zooniverse, it will send you to a nice forum location, and then you'll go in and write a note about it. So do we have a hashtag for, is it doublet?
Yes, we can do hashtag doublet. Perfect.
Doublet, use tag.
But
we found a doublet.
And then does she have to add your comment?
Yeah.
Gotta be particular. This is not a tag yet.
Yeah.
But it will be now. Oh, 1 million extra science is a tag though. Thank you.
Look at that. Yay.
All right. Adding anything else I should write?
I don't think so. There are lots of suggested tags that people can add. You can add a tag for hashtag emission line, but that one is readily available all the time. Oh yeah.
Do you have to leave a comment, or is that just if you want to leave a comment? Can you just do the box?
If you want to. Yeah, okay. Only if you want to, because we will be able to use all of your classifications either way. This is kind of just to add anything extra, or particularly I think it's useful for people who have questions or want to add a comment about something really cool. It is not necessary to add a comment about every classification you make.
Okay, I got a request in the chat to ask about central bulge and AGN. Central bulge and or, we'll go and or. Really excited comment. All right, this is wonderful. I'm seeing the time. I'm so sorry. I'm going to go ahead and pause us there. If you have questions, which I'm sure you do because I do see them, it matters to practice and to use done in talks so that you can actually ask these questions and read through what they're, yeah, absolutely. John, sounds like a good place to ask these questions. Yeah, it's a perfect place. So any questions that come up, if you go to Redshift Wrangler talk, you'll see all the different conversations, including help. So you can get some extra help too. All right, I'm going to throw us back this way momentarily. Just to briefly, before I talk us back into some of the questions, as you're here today, there are other resources for you. So if you would like a flyer that has this lovely backside of all the important notes to look at for these emission lines, you should download it. It's a QR code. You can also use that link. Roland, would you mind writing that link into the chat for us? That would be wonderful. And then that front page will take you back to the project page on SciStarter, so you can see some of the basic info before heading over to the lovely Zooniverse. And I'm looking through the chat to make sure we can cover those questions, and I know we missed a bunch. Y'all are very analytical people. Can this help be done via software? Is data all graphs? Depends on the Zooniverse project. For this one, is it mostly all the graphs?
Well, okay, that's a great question. I would say, I think that, sorry, I got completely distracted.
Software, graphs, we can't use AI yet for this, but for the graphs, is there any other information we can gather from this project that's not in the graph form? Oh, maybe if we head over to results, actually, we might be able to see some more.
Why don't we look there? There's a lot of information we can gather from this. We've got some of the results that we've got stuff posted in results. There was some stuff I put in the talk boards that will be linked in the results as well. But this is a kind of probably first peek into some of the things we've been looking at with the calculations we've made with measurements. So the measurements that we're pulling out initially are the redshift, so the kind of measurements of the distances to these galaxies. These are made based on the emission lines that people are marking in the spectra. And these are kind of the initial like analyses that we're doing based on what we're outputting from Redshift Wrangler, but there's a lot of other statistics that we're looking into, especially with the help of some of our volunteers. We're looking into a lot of stuff like how well we're doing on Redshift Wrangler based on how many people that we've had on the project and how long they're taking to look at objects, and how well our results compare to existing results. And there's a lot of stuff we're doing, stuff that people who have started off as volunteers are helping us with.
So that was actually a question earlier. Sorry to interrupt, but I did want to note that someone had asked about like, how do I become a researcher? And I know as a fact, there's like 400 individuals who are co-authored on NASA projects because they participate in these projects and they work really hard to help the team do that. Do you have any volunteers who have helped you write papers, for example?
Yeah, we have so many volunteers who have helped take on additional roles in the project. We haven't published any papers yet, but our volunteers have definitely made contributions that will be part of publications when we publish Redshift Wrangler and when we introduce Redshift Wrangler in our initial results. So if anyone wants to be more involved with the Redshift Wrangler, feel free to reach out to me. There are so many different things, like pieces of Redshift Wrangler, that come together to both make the running of the project, but also the analysis. There are also lots of different scientific questions that can be asked with what we're putting into the project, what we're taking out of the project. There's so many different roles people have taken on, interests people have developed from what we're doing, things people have wanted to do with the data, questions people have asked if they can follow up on. So I think I almost expected people to kind of come in and just want to be part of what we were doing. And I don't know, it'd be hard to convince anyone to come and help out with this challenging task we were trying to delve into, but people like came in excited to have a million different motivations and wanting to learn. And so yeah, I think there's a lot of like really fun learning that's been happening after we like kind of turned around and we're like, okay, what do you guys want to get out of this? And have been working to try and embrace what everyone else's individual goals are. So we've grown our team of advanced volunteers a lot over the years. And if you ask any questions on the talk boards, you'll probably get me or one of our helpful volunteer moderators answering your questions. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty hyped about just finding that one. So I'm not surprised that people get hooked, you know? It's awesome. Okay, so before we close out, because it is 7:30 where I am anyway, wherever you are, I'm sure it's at the 30 mark unless you're in Adelaide, Australia. And so otherwise, for you all, there is a survey. It's literally 2 questions. If you have a moment to take it, it would be great to hear your thoughts. We just want to know, what did you like? What do you want us to improve on? And we will do our best to make that happen. We'd love to have you join back in February for February 11th, and a bunch of opportunities in April to join. So I'm going to go ahead and drop 5 a.m. for you. Thank you for joining, Sandani. This is the link to go ahead and register for the rest of these events, where we'll have actually 2 hours in April to actually talk through all of this too. So hopefully that'll help. Oh, thank you for the feedback form. And then NASA-Live is for you. We did have a ton of questions though, so if anyone wants to stick around to answer a couple more of them, and Sadie, if you were willing, we'd love to just do a quick check to see if we can answer a couple more of those. Like, is there a textbook for all this? We got that question a couple times.
And someone is wondering about solar flares, and I guess their impact on the peaks or absorption lines. So things like that.
Well, okay, as for textbooks, I don't have a great answer for you. I think that part of what I've found while trying to put together Redshift Wrangler is that there aren't a lot of really great, well, maybe there could be some textbooks out there that would contain some good spectroscopy resources, then I can try and locate those. I can't produce them off the top of my head, but there have certainly been textbooks I've used that could reference some of the spectroscopy information we've gone over.
It's funny too, Sadie, because this is kind of proof of you're on the edge of what the research is doing right now. Like, you are a part of the new stuff. So the fact that you're having trouble finding an answer for this is kind of making me very excited to have you all involved in some cutting edge type of technology and science and what we're doing. Because if it's, I mean, it probably isn't in that many textbooks. Like this exact thing, definitely not, right? Or at least I wouldn't think so.
It's a good way to look at it. I feel like we've spent a long time kind of struggling to find good resources for exactly what we're doing, or good places to point people for like an overview of the spectroscopy in the way we want it. Like an overview of galaxy spectroscopy particularly is hard. I'm sure there are resources out there for really deep dives into spectroscopy and, you know, hardcore textbooks on all kinds of, you know, if you want to go really learn about, you know, the atomic transitions of where emission lines come from. But that's not really what we're getting into here. We're just trying to show you what emission lines are caused by those distant galaxies and what we're learning from them via Redshift. And our specific interests it's really hard to find resources on that exist. So we were kind of like creating the resources we wanted to find out there. And we were creating the stuff that then we would use to train new people who came onto our research group and into our research project. So when my research group would gain new students coming into our field, we'd start using Redshift Wrangler to like train them to learn about the topics that we were like, well, nothing else exists. So now we're going to use this to teach the people that we need to know about this topic to know more about it. But yes, if you find good textbooks about it, let me know. But I fear that anything I would find would be too much for me to even go through. And I would never like find a really good textbook that would describe the information. Well, I would love to know anyone else's recommendations. There have been some textbooks I've enjoyed pieces of, but
there's a related question that I'll just cover pretty briefly here, but questions about like training and tutorial. It is a all around Zooniverse idea that all of this is done through consensus, or like testing for what the consensus should be before it becomes research grade. So similarly, I'm sure Sadie could tell us like how many it takes for us to like have one graph to be looked at by how many people before it becomes the research grade that makes it to the team. So don't worry about getting things wrong. You make your best guess, or you do my trick where you hit the refresh button and you get a new one.
True. So true.
Yeah. Do you have an exact number for how many need to look at it?
Exactly. Right now, it's changed for every data set we're looking at. We've been doing about 20 people look at each object before we retire it. But right now we are collecting even more than that on our current data set, because we're kind of testing the limits, and we're also like using this current data set as a sandbox to let people play and practice and test things out on this data set that we have running. So we're collecting more than that, but it seems to really vary per the type of data that we have in there, whether we need more or less. So we're also trying to figure out what the magic number is of what is the perfect number of how many you need per data for this.
There's an entire project. There are entire projects where that is a full research question of one of the projects on Zooniverse. I think Iguanas from Above, their most recent set of data, they are looking at iguanas, but it's also to find that magic number of like, is this exactly the most like the same efficiency of scientists in the field? There are so many questions, and I don't want to keep us all forever, so I'll go ahead and close this out in 4 minutes. But we have 4 minutes until then. Yeah.
Want textbook recommendations? John has put them into the chat. So.
Oh man.
Someone else.
Thanks, John.
Textbook recommendations.
Did we want to answer the solar flare question?
Oh yeah.
Because 2 people asked that.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I am not sure if solar flares would have an impact on our data at all, actually. I mean, it does seem like solar flares have not had an impact on any of the observations that we're taking. So far, all of our observations have come from ground-based telescopes. We are hopefully going to start using HST and eventually JWST data, which will be space-based from the Hubble and the Webb Space Telescope in the next couple of years. But everything that we've been doing has been from ground-based telescopes. So they wouldn't have been impacted by solar flares. Is there a telescope to detect solar flares? Oh, to actually detect. That's a great question. I also would love to know that. There probably is.
There are the solar telescopes of solar scopes, maybe is what they're called. That show the sun specifically, and you look for their sunspots. I'm not sure how that would necessarily
use specific. Someone else in the chat can hopefully let us know. Parker Solar Probe. That's a good point.
It would probably be the space, you'd correlate with the space weather folks when they'd say, you know, something's heading towards us, a CME, coronal mass ejection, and, you know, then other telescopes and satellites, I think, usually prepare for those things. So maybe you would know, like, oh, there was an event that hit the Earth. We had beautiful auroras. And maybe you would correlate that with any observations from the ground-based telescopes in case something did hit a detector. Maybe.
Pop this out.
Just a thought.
That's great.
There were a couple questions about how to be more effective or how can a young citizen scientist in countries like India contribute more effectively to deep space projects such as Redshift Wrangler or Dark Energy Explorers? Effectively, so for all these projects, the more you participate, the more you engage in like the chat and the talk, excuse me, and ask questions. I feel like that's how you get that communication going with project leaders too, where you can build interesting things. Have you been, or Sadie, have you engaged with folks? Is that how that ends up happening, where they end up being co-authors?
Yeah, I mean, I think my best advice to engage more effectively is just to be involved and to ask your questions and to share your interests. I mean, I think the people that we've had that have become more involved on the project have mostly come on and have shared with us what they're really interested in and what they want, what their goals are on the project and what directions they want to like take the research or you know, take their own interests. That we've had people who've come and said to me, hey, I really want to be more involved, but I'd like to, like, can I use your data and investigate some of my own questions? Or have you done any of this before? I'd like to see some of this. And there are people who have come in and asked me, does this exist on your project? And I'd like to see some of this. And when it didn't, they helped me create it and make sure it existed for the people. Or school groups who have been, you know, looking for very specific resources and helped me create lesson plans that worked specifically for a class or students who wanted something specifically to help them learn a tool. And there might be certain things that are beyond my bandwidth, but I feel like it's cool that there are very specific goals that people come in with, and that almost anything that you like want to get out of the project, I'm happy to like help steer you towards, and that our project is kind of open for anyone to come get what they want out of it. If you want to take it in a different direction, you don't, you know, have to be limited in what you want to do with Redshift Wrangler data or Redshift Wrangler science. So In terms of contributing most effectively, I think the question is like how you want to contribute, or what you want your contributions or your goals to be, because that contribution could definitely be in becoming more a part of the team. And the answer could be reaching out to the project leader and saying you want to communicate with me and do an event or something. But that could also just be asking more, I don't know, questions and learning more about the science and deciding a new goal that you want to embark upon with a group. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like open-endedness in participatory science that is really open for like exploration.
There's so much we don't know. Why not?
Yeah.
All right, we are definitely past time, so I want to pause this here. I know there's so many questions. We will send a follow-up email, so if I note something that never got answered, I will make sure it's in the follow-up for you, and it will include the recording as well, and all the resources we mentioned. Thank you all for being here, and for the 88 who are still online with us. That's really incredible. Thank you all for still being here, and for wanting to listen to these answers. Sadie, thank you so much for being here. Oh, and thanks for all the reactions, folks. We appreciate your time, and hopefully you'll get some more folks running through all your data very quickly. So might get done with a data set pretty quick, or faster now, hopefully. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and close out this call.
Okay. Thank
Have
you.
a lovely rest of your day.
Good night.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. And thanks to our team. Awesome. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.